I'm really intrigued about what we're hearing about the Michigan offense. There are some interesting new revelations. We're going to dig into those coming up right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We're back in doing it, full with internet and all. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Thank you to all of our everydayers who watch or listen to the show every single day. Also, big thank you for making us your first listen. First, we are going to dig into the comments made by offensive line coach Jim Harding on In the Trenches and wide receiver Jamar Browder on The Team from Champ Media about some of the new offensive philosophy with the new coaching staff. And then we're going to talk a little basketball in the win over Iowa on Thursday night. And then finally, we're going to get into last week's LaTroy Lewis stuff, as well as Sherrone more. And there's new developments there. So we've got a lot to do, and we have yet to do that final part. So we are going to do that here. All right. So let's dig into it. So there were some interesting, there just continues to be interesting revelations about just the way things are kind of transpiring and going with this new offensive staff. And I mean, I couldn't be more intrigued by Jason Beck, the way that he runs things, the way that he sees things. It's just like, you get comments from like Chase Herbstreit on the team, little mini podcast, whatever it is that you want to call it on Champ Media, where he's talking about not necessarily Jason Beck, but Kyle Whittingham, and saying like, yeah, it's the return to that Michigan hard-nosed football, which is kind of, Sherrone Moore theoretically hadn't departed from it, just didn't really work out that way. But Jason Beck does things in ways that like Tony Alford was saying, like, I've never seen it done this way. Jim Harding, who had 1 year with him at Utah, is like, I've never seen things done this way, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it obviously has results because each of the last 2 years, #4 offense in the country, New Mexico and at Utah, #2 rushing offense in the country, New Mexico and at Utah. And now he's going to be doing the same thing here with players who, not like, keeping in mind, players are much better. You're inheriting an F1 car after doing rally car, right? Have to work on the F1. It opens this week, guys. I watched practice yesterday. So excited. But anyway, qualifying tonight. But the thing is now everyone's driving F1 cars. It's not like you've got an F1 car and then you're still going up against like a rally car. Everyone's got F1 cars, but still, you still have a better car than anyone else, right? Like you essentially, you're McLaren. I'll make Josiah happy and say you're a Red Bull. You're still running those. Meanwhile, Aston Martin, their car might, their drivers can't drive the car the whole way. Otherwise they might die. That's actually a real thing, by the way. If you don't follow F1, it's kind of hilarious. And I say that as a mixture of being a Lance Stroll hater and lover. Okay, the analogy has gone too far because this is turning into an F1 podcast. Let's get away from that. Let's read the quote from Jim Harding that I think is really interesting about the offensive install. Because this is just so much different than what I've heard. And it's different. It's extremely different from what we have heard from the previous staff. So here we go. So the way Coach Beck runs it, everything's on the table on day one of practice. Okay, that's different. So we'll get a script with, if you can count red zone, we'll get a script with probably 60 or so plays, and any play can be called. It's really unique, and I've never done it this way, but Coach Beck will actually call it like he does in the game. There are no scripts. And so we'll just move the ball down the field, and if it's a third play and it's a 3rd and 3, well, he's going to call a 3rd and 3 call. And so you really have to have the kids prepared for all 60 of those. And then the next day there will be another, maybe different formations and things like that. Once we get the concepts down in the O-line room for the run game, now it's just a matter of dressing up different things. So there's just not as much, but it's just a lot of stuff early on because every run scheme we have could be called on that first day. Every pass protection we could have could be called on that first day. So it's a front loaded installation. I think that's interesting. And it's actually kind of inverse to what Jay Hill said about the defensive, like the install is going to go all the way through fall camp. Whereas here it's like, we're installing all of it right now. And then we're just going to work on it. We're going to hone it, kind of, somewhat. I just think that's really interesting. I'm curious when it says there are no scripts. I mean, I'm assuming that just means in practice and spring ball. But I think what's interesting about that is it keeps players on their toes, and it gets them to like, okay, we're going to make you cram for the exam and see what you know. And then we're going to continue to hone and refine it throughout. Right. But that can actually pay some dividends if the players are smart enough. And I do think that Michigan players are smart enough to be able to handle this, because they've tended to run. Like if you're running a bunch of players that run just like it's like a simple air raid or spread, like, you know, one read and you're done, like you've got one job and everything, then maybe this doesn't work out quite as well. But I think, you know, with a lot of these players having come aboard in, you know, not all of them, but have come aboard at the end of the Jim Harbaugh era, early in the Sherrone era, a lot of the things were relatively complex that they were running. So I think this could actually really pay some dividends to have that. So I think that's interesting. And it's interesting, especially when you pair it with what was spoken of about Micah Simon. Jamar Browder was asked about him directly, and he says this: he's cool. Definitely the way he's presenting things to us, it's like we have more flexibility and freedom to be actual players. I mean, last year you make a play, but it was definitely kind of more robotic actions, unfortunately. So this year it seems like we have more options on routes. It's going to be harder to get covered. Our job is to not get covered. So, I mean, it seems like it's going to be a good deal. That's already just like, I mean, it's funny because I'll take any shade, no matter how much I love Ron Bellamy, and I do. But I'll take any shade thrown at previous coaching staffs, because it just tells you that like players were like, I didn't like that. No, that's an easy, you know, those are easy places to kind of go, right? Like that's not your coach anymore. Those aren't you're not looking up to these guys anymore. It's easy to throw shade. But it is interesting to kind of hear, like, we're putting the onus on the players to be, number one, be a player-led team. That was something that they talked about directly, was the idea that, hey, we're not, you know, this isn't a situation where the coaches, it's our way or the highway. I mean, it is, right? Like you will become us. We will not become you. But there's a certain level of empowerment happening. And I think that's important, because that's kind of what the 21 through 23 teams were. Right. It really wasn't this like my way or the highway. I mean, it was a player led team. And then the last couple of years, it felt more coach led in some things and player led in things that shouldn't have been player led, if that makes any sense. So I love hearing that, because it just feels like, okay, like, especially like, you know, having more flexibility as receivers. That's great, because it's like, if you have a guy like Jamar Browder who's 6'5", be able to go out and get the, you know, say like, I'm going to make this guy whiff, and I'm going to make, you know, put it in the situation where I can get open, then that's better, right? The receivers have had their moments where they've gotten open and the quarterback hasn't been able to capitalize, whether it's Bryce or, you know, previous. But there has also been a lot of times where it's like, man, the receivers just never got open. So kind of putting the pride on their shoulders of saying like, go get open, we'll get you the ball. I think that's a really important thing to be able to have. Obviously, that takes away from some timing route type stuff, but then you just combine these things. You've got a situation where you've got an offensive coordinator that is just forward thinking and doing things differently. You've got coaches that are entrusting and empowering players, certainly within the confines of what they're doing, right? They're not just saying go all willy nilly, but at the same time, like they're trying to do things that are just going to create more mismatches, you know. I love going as much as we like to make fun of the Josh Gaddis era. He's had a lot of really good slogans, like put the defense in conflict. Yeah, that's what it does. So I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see what this looks like. Spring ball in 11 days. We're not necessarily going to see it right away, but still. All right, we've got a lot more to get to. Let's talk some basketball. Undefeated on the road for the first Big Ten team to do it in 50 years. It's kind of wild. So let's get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, college basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with the college basketball. I did that last time. College basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever you want. Any of those things. You can make spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out, and then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump that into a potential payout. So Michigan's obviously going to be favored in quite a few things. Go nuts, go wild, go safe, go bold, whatever you want. Ride with the team that you have been riding with all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. All right, we're going to continue on here momentarily, but before we do, tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. So instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local tax expert in person, or you can even connect online. They handle absolutely everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every single deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives you real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you could have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, I love when I just completely forget to pull up box scores. So that's fun. See, does this work? No. Before we get to that, thank you so much for making Michigan Locked On Wolverines your first listen. You got to dig deeper. And the way to do that is by joining the Everydayer Club. It's $5 a month or $50 a year. And with that, you get ad-free. That's huge in and of itself. You don't have to listen to me prattling on about things that aren't Michigan football or basketball. You can just get right to the point. But the most important thing is the members only Discord, where you can interact directly with me. You can ask me questions and I'm going to answer them to the best of my knowledge and ability. You're going to get a heck of a lot more access to me that way. You're going to get a lot more access to info that way. And if I don't know, guess what? I'm going to go and try to find out, and I'm going to post it in there. So what are you waiting for? LockedOnWolverines.supercast.com, or check the show notes to learn more about the Everydayer Club. All right. There we go. Michigan has a tough time at Iowa. It's the second time that they've had such a close game all the way through start to finish on the road against a Big Ten team. The other one being a 2-point win over Penn State 2 months ago. And nonetheless, they emerge, they survive against Iowa. Not the same Iowa team. Like, I don't fear this Iowa team the same way I feared the Fran McCaffrey versions. But this ended up being a fearsome contest regardless. And it was the first after sudden change with LJ Kaysen going down. So there's that. But it was just kind of crazy because, like, when Michigan finally pushed it to what? It was a 10, I think. Iowa still just managed to come back, right? They went on a 7-0 run, and then before you know it, it's like it's tied up again. And, you know, all of these things end up just playing a part. I wouldn't say there was any point where if I'm watching and thinking like, oh no, Michigan can lose this. I didn't really like that was a possibility, but I was never really that concerned, but you just never know, right? Iowa had kind of set up this warning pre-game of like, pre-prepared people to storm the court. Nope, didn't happen. Michigan prevails by 3 in the game. Turnovers were obviously the big deal in this one because it gave Iowa 19 extra opportunities. 18 turnovers for Michigan, 19 extra shot opportunities for Iowa. I wonder what the problem was. Because Michigan outshot the Hawkeyes by a pretty wide margin, and it came down a little bit, right? Like, and some of those turnovers also came with some bad play under the basket. Yeah, Daimara came alive late, But at the same time, like they were 10 for 20 at layups. Not great. Copious lead changes and ties and things of that nature. Just not what you would expect. But I mean, really happy to see Roddy Gayle. 3 straight layups. Number one, layups were hard to come by in this game. He got 3 of the 10 that they managed. So even though he only had 6 points, I mean, he saved the game in the end. So, yeah, with the block, the strip, all of those things like that happened in that final minute. Like, that's what you need to see, is a guy that came alive in March last year, coming alive in March again this year. We talked yesterday. I think yesterday, maybe it was earlier in the week. I have no concept of the week whatsoever. It's flown by in a flash. About the need for Nimari Burnett to step up, and he did not rise to the occasion. Since he had his 31 points against Penn State a month ago at home, he's gotten to double digits once. I think the other one was 12 points against Ohio State. I think we talked about that earlier in the week. He had 3 points and 4 fouls in this one. 1 for 6 from the field, and it was a 3-pointer. Bro, you got to get it together. Because if you're a starter, like they need, especially without LJ Kaysen, they need the backcourt. They need that backcourt to be working, because now there's just a smaller room for error in general. So got to get him going. Trey McKinney, 5 points. He's been like, he was a hot hand. He's been kind of hit or miss a little bit more lately. So he needs to be a little bit more consistent. But still, I think it's a good thing that Michigan had this type of contest now, because it's not just like, I think with Duke, you know, like, yeah, okay, you learn a lot coming out of that game, what it's going to take to beat a team that is essentially like your peer, your rival, in terms of like actual talent and playability and all of those things. It's going to be a different thing when they get to March Madness, because every team is going to come at them the same way Iowa just did. Even though it was a true road game, it had a feeling of being like an NCAA tournament game, in my opinion, watching the game. Really had that feel of like, yeah, like that team's not going to back down. That team that you should be overmatching is not going to back down. You might have stretched the lead to 10, but here they come right back. You make a couple mistakes, and you know and they were some careless mistakes, man. You're out of it. So it's good to see this team persevere and like find a way to win in hostile territory. Not saying that it's going to be hostile territory, probably not, wherever they end up going in the NCAA tournament. But to be able to withstand a storm like that and to be able to persevere is huge. Now, let's talk about the fact that not only outright Big Ten champions, undefeated on the road, first Big Ten team to do that since Bobby Knight led Indiana before I was born, before a lot of you were born, in 1975-76. So literally 50 years ago. And you know, for the protege, not from way back then, of course, but for the protege of Bobby Knight in Dusty May to go forth and do exactly what that is, to have that same thing with one more game on the docket, right? They went 9-0 back in 76, 10-0 this year. And also when you consider that Indiana that year won the national championship, I mean, you hope that's an omen. But even if it isn't, that is massive. So I was asked on the mailbag yesterday, what do you think that this team, there's maybe some unrealistic expectations? No, I think the expectations have kind of been set. And when you have things like that, it's kind of hard to overlook them, because that's huge. All right, we've got to talk about some of the unsavory things that have continued to plague the University of Michigan. I'm going to give you my thoughts. They're probably not going to be in line with what people hope or expect, especially outside of the program. Sorry. But we'll get to my thoughts on the LaTroy Lewis stuff, as well as the Sherrone Moore revelations from that, as well as today, him reaching a plea deal. We'll get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. Guess what? Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this podcast will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this show. So it's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, we'll continue on momentarily, but before we do, welcome to the 5-hour energy flavor draft. We are looking at every aspect of the draft to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which might just be sleepers. 5-hour energy shots give you the boost with zero sugar, and we're choosing between two right now. Blue raspberry with its sweet and tangy flavor with a taste that nature couldn't make, but it probably should have. And fruity rainbow with its sweet layered fruit notes in every single sip. And you know what? Push comes to shove, arm behind my back, all of that stuff. I am picking blue raspberry as my number one overall pick, but fruity rainbow is right there behind it. But don't look now, confetti craze is right there, lagging just behind them, but could absolutely be a sleeper pick. Find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. All right, week hasn't panned out the way I had hoped. Late last week or this week to be able to talk about everything. We missed 2 days thanks to a mixture of me having one day where the day got away from me, another where it was I was sick, not sick. It wasn't like a cold flu, weird migraine, hyperventilating. I don't really know what it was. And then even when I was like, okay, let's do it anyway, internet was out for about 28 hours. Thanks, Surf Internet here in Fenton, Michigan, for that. But we did get a show up yesterday regardless. So a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people. I was, of course, tagged mostly by rival fans wanting me along with my colleagues to address the LaTroy Lewis situation. If you don't know, he's alleged to have committed sexual assault on a woman, and these texts came out and things of that nature. Here's what I will say about that. I'm going to be a little bit more careful than I am with a lot of other things, because I will immediately tell you there is an implicit bias, because the way I heard about the story was from LaTroy Lewis himself, who called me. That's how I heard about it. I think a lot of people, especially haters and such, tend to expect you to be terminally online, and I am not. I once upon a time used to just sit and scroll Twitter all day. Now you might find me on it for about 20, 30 minutes tops on a day over the course of the day. I'm just not on it. I'm not just sitting there scrolling, in general. I've just got other things to do, better things to do with my time. It's not the place where I necessarily get all my news as I once had, to be able to, no one's breaking everything, right? Like there's just stuff, recruiting and all that kind of stuff. You get, just Hayes Fawcett tweets it. I get a notification. Okay, cool. Right. I don't need to be sitting there scrolling all the time. So with that said, I have an immediate bias here, because it was not presented to me in a, hey, guess what? I'm guilty of all this. It was quite the opposite. I've heard compelling evidence from the other side of the argument too. So I will say this, that the texts, if they are real, which they presumably are, look damning and awful from him. And that said, I think that we need to get back to a little bit of, because I've heard both sides now, we need to get back to a little bit more of an innocent until proven guilty type of mentality, because I am sick in general of the culture. And this isn't me just defending him because he's a Michigan guy. It's just literally because it's like I've heard both sides, and I can't say many have had that, right? A lot of people just look at what they're presented from one side and say guilty, abhorrent, let's move on. I will admit the abhorrence of, again, the text, but we don't necessarily know everything that's happened. So I just don't think that we need to be a culture that is just looks guilty enough to me, court of public opinion, let's go. I don't like that at all. And if he is proven guilty, friend, acquaintance, whatever he is or not, then yeah, he deserves the bad stuff that comes to him. I mean, it's that simple. But this is also why I've been saying for a while, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I'm not going to sit there and condemn Ohio State for having Les Wexner's name up there. I'm not going to sit there and make Larry Nassar a moratorium on all things Michigan State, right? Or Jerry Sandusky for Penn State, right? Like all of these institutions have had, unfortunately, really bad situations. That said, I hate seeing Michigan consistently finding ways to put itself in the news. And with the Sherrone Moore stuff that came out, where it sounds like he was told about this and then took advantage to continue to be more of a slime ball, sleaze bag, whatever you want to say. I mean, it's unfortunately kind of par for the course with him, unfortunately. And today he gets off on his plea deal, did contest no contest to malicious telecommunications as well as trespassing. I don't know. I kind of wanted to see the guy go to jail because there has been enough where I know for certain that he did the things. So with that, it was less of innocent till proven guilty because, I mean, it was, but then, it might be hearsay, but I heard enough to say, yeah, I think this dude needs to maybe get some time in jail. Right. And I'm not particularly happy that he's not going to end up having that, because I think that we've learned enough to know that he was doing a lot of harm in society. We put it that way. So yeah, that's my take on it. And I'm sure that the people who hate Michigan or hate me are going to find ways to twist it, make it into something different. But I would hope for anyone's sake that if you are under the auspices of what may or may not be a rightful attack, that you would be granted that same type of mentality of innocent until proven guilty, which is what this country is founded upon. So I just wish that we would get back to that, is kind of what I've got there. If guilty, it's awful. It's beyond awful. It's abhorrent. And the texts and everything from LaTroy, if those were actually his texts, I mean, they're about as bad as they can be. Sickening to read, to be honest. So that's that. But, as a Christ follower, we're all guilty. That's just ultimately, that might sound counterintuitive, but we all are. We're all evil. So, seek something bigger than trusting to get your I don't know how to say it. How to get your enjoyment out of things, but from a rival having negative news stories that don't involve the actual on-field results. You know what I'm saying? All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. The plan doesn't always go to plan, but the hope is that we'll be able to have shows over the weekend. Maybe early tomorrow and then after the MSU game on Sunday. We'll see how that works out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again soon. Peace.